How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Blue Shifting, and welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry. With this, you'll know before me because it'll be in the thumbnail. This might be the last episode. It kind of depends on how long we take for whatever like the wrap up is, because then we'll have the all cast thing, and that tends to be kind of long. Not terribly long though, so I'm kind of willing to go a little long today. It depends. It kind of just depends on a few factors, but ultimately last week was really interesting. We had this whole idea of Rika having, so she's somehow got some kind of like double personality thing going, has a lot of indicators of potentially being a psychopath, like a high functioning one, like someone's pointed out in the comments about high functioning, and that would be true. And like this idea, it kind of matches up with a lot of stuff, but it also talks about, like, we had that whole prediction of the future, like talking about how the Watanagashi festival is going to kick up, how that's going to reinvigorate the Watanagashi, like the Watanagashi festival and the Watanagashi like killings were going to like feed into each other. And then after a few years, there was going to be the result where Rika pointed out, both like in her like alternate mode, her personality switched phase or whatever, or maybe not even personality switch, maybe that's just the real Rika, you know? Like I talked about before, I kind of touched on it, but I didn't like really express it, like, because I hadn't thought of it all the way, is that there's a metaphysical argument there about like maybe she's being possessed by Oyashiro-sama, right? But the other angle that you could argue that it makes it less metaphysical is that, remember, she's a high-functioning psychopath? Well, that's the thing. High-functioning psychopath, especially one that dedicates themselves to, you know, learning and growing and being mature, like as part of their facade, their mask, their way they present themselves, and that they might not behave like you'd expect them to, like for their age. So interestingly, when we talked about how like it feels like Rika has like two personalities, it might not actually be that. It might just be that the Rika we get to know is a mask. Like that's the cute little girl that everyone expects to see. We see that mask be put up when she has the cooking competition at school, right? And everyone was like, oh, like, where'd you learn that? And she's like, oh, I learned it at home. And her mom's like, that's a lie. I never taught you that. Remember? Like, but like she's openly lying and being a sweetheart. That's part of that facade, I'm guessing, is all that it's all about. Like, so there's an argument to be made there that she's a psychopath who like spent a lot of time like learning and studying. You could argue that maybe is like an inherited spirit thing, right? But like a wisdom of the age of like former lives or something. But the other side of that argument is that she's high functioning a psychopath. The cuteness that she has is all about manipulation and helping people underestimate her, which is why she's always kind of calm and collected. That other personality might just be who she really is, like she lets the mask drop a little, and that's just who the real Rika is. And that's an angle I think has more teeth now that I think about it. I tend to lean more towards the like there's nothing metaphysical actually happening. It feels like it's too easy of an explanation, right? Like, it feels like it also kind of becomes this catch-all where like everything that makes no sense is just like, oh, it's just magic. And I've never liked it when that becomes like the actual answer. So I'm curious to see where they're going to take it. But I was just considering that option of being like, okay, what if she doesn't have two personalities? It's just she has a fake personality that she shows the world, and then she has her real self that she hides because she knows people don't react to it very well. But then it doesn't explain how she has this like ability to, see the future, whatever that's about. I don't know. There's a lot here that's kind of funky. So hopefully we'll get some more answers. It really is trippy to hear her like perfectly foretell the future. From a writer's perspective, it's like obvious. Well, like of course, like the writers and even us readers know how things actually play out. But to have her be able to predict the future as in the narrative does really start leaning a lot of credence to this idea of the supernatural, right? Because otherwise, how could she predict it? Unless she like could orchestrate it all perfectly and know exactly how it's all going to play out, which is, especially because she even knows that she dies. And she kind of confirms too, like in every route, whether we saw it or not, it seems that she dies. Maybe part of a ritual or by, elimination by Mion. Somehow she perishes in the year that we play the game, and it seems like it's an inevitability for whatever reason. So I'll have to see. All right, well, I think we're about ready. Let's see what mysteries we can unravel here, and I guess get ready for what comes next. Music seemed really loud. It was an accident that happened. Oh, she's
誰も
reading
が
it.
忘れそうなほど地方の小さな村の出来事。悲劇は幕を閉じ、その傷跡も消え去ろうとしていたある日。青年はかつて出会った少女に思いを馳せる。あの日聞けなかった言葉。あの日果たせなかった約束。その後悔と慟哭が閉じられたままだった運命を開く一つの光となった。
Okay.
暇つぶし。
Himatsubushi. Interesting. Normally,
運命は幸せだけじゃない。でも不幸を望む人なんて誰もいない。
in the other games, we usually get this kind of title card thing towards the beginning of a story, right? I hadn't thought we hadn't seen that one yet. And in Midsummer. So, this is almost implying, because remember, so she talks about the future and how it's like sealed, right? So is it arguing that like we might be able to foresee a new future, and that he, Katsa, whatever his name is, you know, the inspector who we were following, maybe he intervenes in a future and maybe stops something from happening or lets her not die, or like he changes the formula. Maybe. We'll see.
パパってば。
Miyuki? Oh, is that going to be his daughter? Akasaka.
大丈夫？怖い夢でも見たの？
Miyuki was sitting next to me. I quietly patted her head after hearing her say that. I must have had a bad dream while sleeping in the cabin. I was sweating profusely.
いや、なんでもない。ちょっと暑かったかな。
How you doing these days, man? I tried to wipe away the sweat while answering and looked around for a handkerchief or towel. And then a cold drop ran down my forehead. Miyuki turned to me and smiled, then wiped my face with a towel she'd received at takeoff.
ありがとう、ユキ。
Aw, thanks to her, I was finally able to shake off my slumber, so I got up from the aisle seat and looked out the window. I wrapped my arms around Miyuki of the window seat and listened to the noise as the land and sea blew past us before our eyes. I'm hearing like car sounds. Or maybe they're in a bus or something, or a train. Land and sea. Hokkaido.
でっかいど、北海道。
And then the plane gently turned before entering the airport one way. Yeah, this is car sounds, but it's an airplane. Okay. Arriving in the lobby, I glanced around looking for Ooishi, and was met with a familiar gruff voice calling out to me.
Akasaka-san! 何年ぶりでしょう。
So this must be after the events of that happened, right? Because he's retired now.
ご無沙汰しておりますね。
大石さん、本当にお久しぶりです。
Ooishi clapped his hands on my shoulder, celebrating our reunion.
赤坂さんもだいぶいい顔つきになりましたね。
Although I just heard him say they pronounced it. They dropped the e at the end of his name, so it's Ooishi, and maybe like the tiniest little e, like Ooishi, like something really short at the end.
最前線の捜査官らしいいい顔つきですよ。
大石さんはだいぶスマートになりましたね。背筋も良くなったような。これも社交ダンスのおかげですか。
The ballroom dancing.
赤坂さんもね、若いうちからダンスはやっておいた方がいいですよ。
I did a little bit of ballroom dancing in college. Like it was just something that like I don't know. I always thought it was kind of interesting, and I had a friend who like said, "Hey, let's just go do it," because we had a free like elective or something, and we just went. No, it was a club, and we just started going, and it was actually I had a lot of fun with it. Definitely not something I put too much time into, but it was pretty good.
そしたらきっとモテます。モテモテ。
He's married, I assume. Ooishi had retired and moved to Sapporo, of all things, and started taking ballroom dance lessons. He had apparently gotten really into it and had decided to spend the rest of his new life devoted to that hobby. He was aiming to get his instructor's qualifications before he hit 80 to live out his old age daintily.
おやそちらがひょっとして
Aww. Look, she has like a sprite and everything. Ooishi suddenly turned his attention to Miyuki, who was standing idly next to me. He bent down on his knee and looked her in the face. Oh, yep. However, my daughter was frightened and hid behind my back.
こら、みゆき。ちゃんとご挨拶しなさい。
She was staring at Ooishi with a dubious expression while tugging at the hem of my shirt. She's usually not this shy. I wonder what's wrong.
すみません。いつもはこうじゃないんですが。
いいんですよ。おじさん顔が怖いからな。よかったらお名前を聞いてもいいですか？
赤坂みゆき。
There you go.
7歳です。
7?
こんにちはです。
いいお返事です。
Okay, yeah, so that's pretty clear. So she was basically about to be born around the events at the time of like that we saw, and she was talking about how like it was gonna be 6 years when like the events that we see are. So this is like the year following. Okay. I hope I'm keeping the timeline in my head right.
さすがは赤坂さんの娘さんですよな。
Ooishi gently stroked Miyuki's head and smiled as though she were his own grandchild. After finally seeing that, Miyuki sighed and smiled in relief. Shortly afterwards, Miyuki told me that she was just doing what I told her to do, be careful around strangers. Ooishi overheard that and let out a hearty wah-ha-ha, shaking his body while laughing and walking. I let myself into Oishi's car and we headed out toward the hot spring inn. I had originally intended to crash at Oishi's place, but Ooishi was quite obstinate that his home wasn't suitable for that, so I came to this. And at the end, we relaxed while soaking in the hot springs, then ate a delicious feast until we were full. Miyuki had a little of the Mongolian barbecue and was delighted with it. So, I mean, are we gonna hear, like, is his wife okay? Like, she's still around, right? After our bellies were swollen, Miyuki grew sleepy and went off to bed. Then Ooishi and I reminisced about the time we played mahjong together in Hinamizawa. It seemed that to celebrate our reunion, Ooishi had looked for people who could play. But unable to find a suitable candidate, we had to give up on putting together a table. As we drank together, we excitedly recounted our exploits during the final manhunt.
結局、あの犯人の2人は捕まったんですか？
Oh my gosh, we have a whole new sprite for him. Look at that. He looks so comfy.
結局山狩りでも見つけられませんでした。多分村にかくまわれてから海外か遠方でほとぼりを冷ましてるんじゃないかと思いますね。
Dang, if they actually, again, like, the Sonozakis really run themselves like Yakuza. Like, I thought they were being, like, you know, over dramatic when they describe them that way, but, like, it really starts to feel like it's a true, like, and powerful family. Like, I know they're powerful, but I always assumed their power was very localized. Like, obviously, like, their county, they were very powerful and had some influential people in Tokyo. No, it feels like they've got connections all across Japan and around the world.
大石さんは確か、犯人の銃の一丁を奪いましたよね。あれからは。
海外の軍用拳銃でした。
Military, huh?
関西系の暴力団組織が大量に密輸したうちの一丁でしょうな。
Okay.
戦場痕を調べましたが、他の事件とのつながりは何も出ませんでした。
Oh, wow. So they had a cleaned gun. So that a cleaned gun being one that's been scrubbed of identification, it's been smuggled past and never been given certification, and it'd been isolated from other crimes. The difficulty there is it basically would mean that if your criminal organization wants to try and keep things buttoned up, they would just have to get smuggled weapons, file off their IDs, and then if the guns are ever used, they have to be immediately destroyed, removed, or, you know, like, blocked. It would be very expensive. But I guess if you're an organization that rarely has to utilize firearms and they're more for just threats, then it might not be a bad investment.
そっちでは？
私はあの後、しばらく現場を離れましたので、よくは知りません。
Interesting.
結局、全部闇の中ってことで決着したようですがね。
Ooishi smiled wryly as he sipped his chilled drink.
あの後は大変でしたね。今年で7年ですか。
ええ、先日、7回忌の法要がありました。
Oh gosh.
岐阜とも最近は疎遠でして。 準備でいろいろ苦労しました。
They had a memorial service a few days ago, so it sounds like she did pass, but like... But did she pass in childbirth?
それは、お疲れ様でした。
It was then that the hostess brought the extra drinks that we had ordered before. While the bottles of beer clanked as she brought them in, we halted our conversation. What Ooishi meant when he said that must have been tough. Thinking about it was still hard, but time had healed the wound. It was the day after, when I phoned Ooishi to apologize. When I did, Ooishi almost immediately handed the phone to one of my colleagues who happened to be there. Not only was I injured in a brawl with the suspects, but I disappeared to drink late into the night without leaving any sort of contact information, so I thought he'd definitely be mad. However, all he said was that if there's something that he couldn't talk about over the phone, that I should just come to the station as soon as possible. Oh gosh. At the time, I could only think that he must have been really pissed off. But when I arrived at the station, he said this.
君の奥さんが事故に遭ったらしい。
Oh my gosh. Having no idea what happened, I borrowed the phone to contact the hospital Yuki was staying at. After being given a runaround several times, I was finally able to talk to someone in charge, and after mincing words for quite some time, they told me... Fetch me. Is this implying? Because remember, he was told that he would regret his interference, and we knew that he was being being considered a target, right? But he'd been spared. If this accident was potentially orchestrated, could she have actually been the first casualty of the Watanagashi curse/festival? And it just happened the year prior? Maybe like a test run, if it was done by people, or the legitimate curse. She did sound like she might have had family that lived in the area, so maybe she could be considered part of it. That sucks. The world became a blur as I sat there dumbfounded. Yuki's death was unbelievably abrupt, unbelievably sudden. I could have understood if there was some kind of problem during the birth, but Yuki's death wasn't anything like that. On the stairs on the way up to the roof, she just happened to slip and fall. Oh gosh. And she just happened to fall in an unfortunate place at an unfortunate angle. That was it. Wanting to blame Yuki's death on somebody, I began to think that it was an act of revenge by the Guardians and that they killed my wife to make it look like an accident. What I learned when I flew back to Tokyo, however, was much, much more cruel than that. Dang, that sucks. That really sucks. Because it's like, I think it's one of those things that people forget, especially when we get so caught up in stories and fiction and everything. The world is cruel, and one of the most cruel things is that it's shockingly easy to die. That's why we have to be so careful, and why it's important to be respectful of our own bodies and our own limitations, because it's like, sometimes we see things like people jumping out of planes with parachutes, or people doing parkour, leaping across these crazy gaps 20 to 50 feet in the air and jumping across them making it look like it's nothing, when a fall that's just slightly off from as short a distance as a few feet can be lethal. There's one example too of how there are stories and things where people get into fights and someone can get punched, especially if it's in the back of the head, where your neck and your skull are. If you punch decently hard there, you can immediately sever the spinal cord, because it's shockingly easy to do if you hit them with the right pressure, and especially if they're not trained and their bodies aren't kind of braced for that kind of physical trauma. It is shocking how quickly people can die. And then we also get this idea of what if you do a non-lethal thing, hitting somebody with a bat? It's we get this idea, or that you can knock somebody unconscious. It's reality is if you hit somebody hard enough, or you constrict their airflow enough to knock them unconscious, they're either coming back around within 30 seconds, or they're dead. There's no such thing as that whole idea of getting hit in the head and being knocked unconscious for a convenient amount of time for a story to oh, you get hit in the head, everything goes black, and you wake up tied up in a basement or something. It's no, that's not how that works at all. If you're unconscious for that long of a time, you basically you have partial brain death, because that's just, being unconscious is just your brain dying. It's scary. It's scary how easy it is to die. We should all be in terrible fear at all times, because one little thing, and this could be us. Yuki had a habit of going up to the roof to cool off in the evening. There was an elevator up to the 7th floor, but from there you had to take the stairs to get to the roof. Even late in her pregnancy, when the evening came, she would always head up there. Her father had always said for her not to push herself, but Yuki insisted that until the time she had no choice but to stay in bed, she should be allowed to do as she wished. However, I had never once seen Yuki go up to the roof. I only heard that from her father and the nurses. That was because whenever I visited her, she would spend her time with me instead. I heard the reason why Yuki went up to the roof from the nurse she had become friendly with. Oh no. She said that her husband was away on business a lot of the time, and that whenever he called, he was able to cheer him up and give him courage. But when he didn't call, she couldn't do that. Her husband might put on a show of bravado, but in reality, he grew lonesome pathetically fast. She was probably just the same. Whenever he left for business, not clear he'd be back, she felt very lonely. Whenever she cheered him up, she was actually cheering herself up as well. That's why, whenever he went far away for an important job, on the evenings he didn't call, at the very least, she felt like standing underneath the same sky, her feelings would reach him. Oh, it sucks so much. It's like, you could argue that by cutting the phone lines and forcing him to run around trying to contact her and preventing him from doing so, that ended up killing his wife. Like, that's the thing though, is it's like, it easily could just be an unfortunate coincidence. But in this game, in this story, is it? At that moment, nope, I right-clicked for some reason. I remembered the words the girl had told me, that it would be best that I go back to Tokyo right away. Otherwise, there would be something I'd regret horribly. That's implying that she just simply has a sense of seeing the future. Yes, that's it. Because I was away on business that day, Yuki had headed up to the roof. Had I known this would have been the result, had I done as the girl had said and dropped everything and headed back to Tokyo, I might have been with Yuki on the day she died. If I was with her, she wouldn't have gone up to the roof. The day my wife died was on the evening of the 3rd day of my trip. Yeah, it was right before the time I had sudden urge to hear Yuki's voice and ran around the village trying to find a phone. The girl had gone around and cut all the phone cords. If she hadn't, and I had made the call, I would have undoubtedly learned of Yuki's death at that time and collapsed in tears. Oh, she'd already died. So she died the night before because he hadn't been able to call then. Interesting. Okay, so then you wouldn't really be able to attribute that to Watanagashi because she died the day before Watanagashi. Of course, even though the cords were cut, it only put me off learning Yuki's death by one evening. In the end, I had learned I had learned of it the next morning. However, when I managed to put my emotions in order, I realized that the girl's small token that was that girl's small token of consideration.
そんな話は初めて聞きました。
ええ、私も初めて話します。
偶然では。超能力じゃあるまいし。
大石さんは教えてくれましたよね。あの子は、お社様という神様の生まれ変わりではないかと言われてるって。
But it's interesting that she showed compassion then. Because like, if the argument being that like, because I thought it was that she cutting the cords and he didn't make the call, she might not have gone up to the roof and might not have died. But if she'd done it the night before, then the cutting of the cords and preventing him from learning about the truth until he'd had a night of rest was almost a mercy in a way. So that's interesting then, because that completely flips that motivation.
ねえ、まあ。村の年寄りどもはフルでリカに神通力があると信じてるようでしたがね。
The villagers believed the Rika today had divine powers.
神通力?
Ooishi had originally said as a kind of a joke, but realizing that I was serious, he slumped his shoulders.
まあ、嘘か本当か知りませんがね。未来のことを予言してみせたり、知らないはずのことを話してみせたり。
I mean, she kind of did.
千里眼だの。天の啓示だの。まあ、いろいろです。もちろん、具体的な実例は何一つありゃしないんですがね。
雪絵の事故を予言してみせました。
Ooishi tried to laugh it off, but out of respect for my deceased wife, he kept her restrained.
現職の警視庁の敏腕捜査官が、神通力やら、たたりやらを信じるわけで。
That's rich coming from you, mister. Every time I'm in the post-credit scenes, I'm always advocating for the curse. Having him say it so bluntly, I couldn't respond. Of course, I had no intention of believing such odd things, but he could only say that because he didn't know what I did. Since I met the other girl, who both was and wasn't Rika Furude, I couldn't deny the existence of an otherworldly entity.
予知でなく予告の可能性ももちろん否定できません。
Not prescience, but a warning. What if the girl had said that what had said was a warning about Yuki's accident? Then things become much easier to understand. Basically, the line of thinking became that it was a threat because I didn't go back to Tokyo. My wife was killed in a way that made it look like an accident.
奥さんの事故の検証に不備は？
もちろん謀殺の可能性も疑いました。現場検証の書類は全て目を通しましたし、私が独自に調査もしました。
I'd be shocked if he didn't, honestly. If you have the access to resources, I imagine it would be inappropriate, but I don't think anybody would fault him for wanting to, look into things. There weren't any witnesses to Yuki's fall. There was a possibility that someone had hidden, waiting to push Yuki down the stairs. However, the cleaning ladies frequented the roof to hang laundry, and the security cameras in each floor hadn't recorded anything out of the ordinary. There wasn't anything set up on the stairs, and I was unable to find anything suspicious.
結局、独自の検証の結果でも、ユキエが単独で事故を起こしたとしか考えられませんでした。
Dang.
確かに、大臣の孫を誘拐して、脅迫してのけた連中です。妊婦一人を階段から突き落として、証拠を残さないなんて、できないことじゃないのかもしれない。
Oishi's expression had completely sobered up. Yeah, I bet.
奥さんは、連中に殺された。
When Yuki died, I thought that as well. More precisely, I wanted to blame somebody, so I created the most viable scapegoat. But without any clear evidence, that violent notion faded along with the wounds in my heart.
あの少女は、私に妻の死を予告し、脅迫したのか。それとも、妻の死を予言し、救う道を示したのか。
You know what? You put it like that, they're both terrible answers. Either she knew and was threatening, or she was prophesying, magic is real, and I could have saved her. I think you'd go mad if you didn't let that go, because if being torn between those two, they're both maddening.
そのどちらかなのだとしたら、私は後者ではないかと考えます。
I guess so, because if you tend toward the latter, it's a universe that is trying to be kind, and that's a universe that it's nicer to believe in. That might be a big hinge point for a lot of religion. Like, sometimes you look at people who believe things that you're like, shake your head, and you're like, why? How could someone believe that? And I think the answer in the end of the day is that there's a part of us that looks at all the cruelty, the pain, the suffering, the unfair imbalances of the world and wants to just have hope of hopes that there is some bigger plan or some justice or some reason or some path forward, a kindness, that, yeah, obviously terrible things happen, but that, at least there'd be a purpose to it, or that there would be a hope in something to come. Because I think otherwise, if we all stared down the black void of just nihilism, I don't think a lot of us would be able to handle that. Not when the hard stuff happens. Ooishi smiled slightly in disbelief as he poured more beer from his bottle.
じゃあいいですよ。赤坂さんの言う通り。古出リカは未来がわかる預言者だとします。なら、なぜあの大災害が予知できなかったんです？
Okay, so this is talking about the disaster.
あんな恐ろしいガス災害が起こると知ってて、どうして黙っていたんです？
Yeah, okay, so what we saw at the end of the last part is being more solidified. This is a post-Satoko route world. But again, it also, I was saying before, maybe that happens regardless of the path, because we don't see the far enough in the future of the Mion or the gosh darn it, what's her name? Rena route. we don't see far enough to know if that's going to be, if that was an inevitability that was going to happen regardless. But this is kind of implying it is, and that all the paths were going to end in the gas eruption.
ほんの数時間前でもいい。
Maybe she did, but maybe she was already going to be dead. And maybe there was a part of her that was a little vindictive. Maybe there's a part of her that was a little bit, you know, hurt by the fact that she was going to die and there was nothing she could do to stop it. So maybe, just maybe, she wasn't going to do anything else to stop anything else. Or whatever that ability is, ends when she dies. And maybe that's how she knows she would die, is that she can't see past a certain day. And that day is the day she dies.
もし村に知らされていたら、ほとんどの人は死なずに済んだかもしれないじゃないですか。
Wow, you sound like angry about it. Greet him as a disaster and memoriam list. It was near the end of 1983. Volcanic gases from the Onagafuchi swamp erupted and hit the village in the middle of the night. It was an unprecedented disaster where the whole populace was wiped out. It caused a wave of panic about volcanic gas across the country, causing people to overreact over any reports of odd smells. I hadn't heard of the blockade on the Hinamizawa area being lifted, so it should still be cordoned off.
それは
It was my turn to be at a loss for a response.
まあでも、お社様の生まれ変わりである古出リカが殺されたので、村がお社様の怒りに触れて、それで沼から瘴気が湧き出して、村を死滅させたんじゃないかって。
Ooishi, why do you keep throwing out these possibilities that keep trying to make it sound like the curse is real? Every time he does this, I'm like, that she's got a point there. Because it's like, yeah, if she's killed, because either by Mion or in a ritual sacrifice for whatever reason, and then a little later, the entire village gets wiped out. That... God, fetch!
そういう話が確かに、Hinamizawa系の生存した人間たちの間で、
大石さん、失礼。今、殺されたとおっしゃいましたか？
え？ああ、うん、まあ、赤坂さんになら話しても問題ないか。
Right. When I saw the news about the gas disaster, I remembered that girl. Then I found her name on the list of victims. That's why, at the time, I thought her own death that she had predicted was due to the gas. It was after I learned from the tabloids that a series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa during the 5 years leading up to the disaster became known as the Curse of Oyashiro-sama. And that string of mysterious deaths lined up exactly with what the girl had predicted, so I had always thought to ask Ooishi about it, and as he had been involved in the investigation. That's right. That was the reason for our reunion. But right now, Ooishi had said, Rika Furude didn't die in the disaster, but was killed?
最後の年のたたりについて聞かせてもらってもいいですか？
私、退職したとはいえ、守秘義務がありますよ。
Ah, convenient. We don't get to know which one's canon.
中井さん、すみません。お冷やで、ちょっとグレードの高い地酒はありませんか？種類はお任せします。
It's like basically a bribe.
いやいや、そういうつもりで言ったんじゃないんだけどな。
Ooishi laughed loudly, not wholly unsatisfied, and stopped the hostess to tell her that cheap booze was fine.
私も週刊誌で報道されている通りのところまでは知っています。
The chimes are back!
でも、大災害の年のたたりは全く知りません。
例の大災害のせいで、Hinamizawa地区全域が封鎖されちゃいましたからね。最後の年のたたりについては、ほとんど捜査ができてないんですよ。
Right.
何年か後に封鎖が解けたとしても、村人のほとんどが死んでますし、数少ない生存者も親戚の元なんかに散って、所在がほとんどわからないですからね。
Honestly implies too, because I feel like in all the stories, weren't Keiichi's parents like out of town for work stuff? So like they were out of town when this happened, and their son dies there. Like what a crappy thing to have happen.
完全に迷宮入りです。
Ooishi seemed to postulate to himself as he stared at the ceiling as if trying to work out a memory from rusty cogs in his head. And then he said in a completely sober voice.
週刊誌なんかじゃ、5年目のたたりが大災害だ、みたいな言い方をしてますけどね。
No.
本当の5年目のたたりは、ちゃんと渡流しの祭りの当日にあったんですよ。富武二郎っていう旅行写真家がいましてね。
Tomitake.
彼が犠牲に。
Ooishi gestured about how the victim tore out his own throat with his fingernails as he talked.
で、その富武氏の恋仲の女性が、岐阜の山中で焼死体に。岐阜県警さんがあんまり協力的じゃなかったもんで、こっちはあまりよく状況を知らないんですがね。
Yeah, but like then there's the real mystery there where she'd been dead before she was at Watanagashi.
一夜にして犠牲者が2人も。
No.
実はね、
This is the part that really throws me for a loop because I can't fathom how this works.
2人どころじゃ済まないんですよ。その翌日になんですがね、私の後輩の熊谷くんが捜査中に車両ごと蒸発しましてね。
Oh. Kumagi. Oh, you know what? I remember that does get referenced, but it always gets dropped. Like it references that somebody's been missing and they're looking for somebody, but then it never comes up again. Kumagi was the younger detective that was going to be partnered with Ooishi after we first met.
富武氏の事件捜査のために村に聞き込みなんかに回ってたんですよ。何かの事件に巻き込まれたのかもしれない。私と一緒だったなら無事だったかもしれないと思うと、
Okay.
今でも悔しいですよ。
Tomitake. Maybe he found something.
あの日どういうわけか私、お腹をひどく壊しましてね、外回りは遠慮しちゃってたんですよ。
事件の真相に近づきすぎて。
と思ってます。熊ちゃんは善と有望な若者だったけど、まだ現場経験が不足してた。
Kind of like someone else we know.
トラブル慣れしてなかったんです。
Ooishi lamented the fact that he wasn't with his subordinate that day.
で、さらに翌日ですね。ああ、彼のことは赤坂さんもご存知ですよね。ほら、入江先生ですよ。
Okay, what?
覚えてます？
Yeah, what happened to Dr. Irie?
ああ、あの病院の若い先生ですね。ぼんやりと覚えてます。
彼ですね。どういうわけか、
Okay.
睡眠薬で自殺しまして。
So this feels like the post-Satoko path, then.
遺書の類はなし。司法解剖の結果でも睡眠薬によるものと断定されました。動機以外に不審な点はなし。
睡眠薬での死に見せかけるのはそんなに難しくないんじゃないですか？
Yeah. Again, so like it's almost like there were multiple chaining victims though, because then it makes it seem like Irie dies and the investigator gets vanished.
他殺の可能性は？
独身で離婚歴もなし。特定の女性と付き合っていたという話もなし。少年野球チームの監督を務め、村人との親交もあり、誰からも好かれる人物。
He was also kind of creepy.
敵が見当たりませんね。まあそれを調べるにも、もうあの大災害でめちゃくちゃになっちゃいましたからね。今となっては彼の身辺を調べようもありませんが。
There's a lot of threads here that just don't line up.
それでフルでリカの死は？
その当日です。昼頃に神社に訪れた村の老人たちがフルでリカの死体を発見しました。
So who did it?
他殺。
ああ、話す前にそのイカそうめん
Oh gosh, yeah.
食べちゃっといた方がいいですよ。
Because it's gonna be the ritual, like the ritual sacrifice, like the one that was done, like, yeah.
無体な死に方。
Ooishi nodded firmly.
死体は神社の境内、賽銭箱の脇でした。もっとも閉めたのは他の場所でしょうね。全裸で裸足。
Oh gosh.
足の裏は汚れてませんでしたから。
愉快犯の犯行。
司法解剖の結果、性的暴行の痕跡は認められませんでした。
That's the thing. It's like, I feel like working in a morgue, in some ways I'd be like, I think it'd be fine, because I think I can detach and understand, like, it's no longer a person. But like, man, having to do autopsies on kids or victims of crimes would be rough.
わかったのは、薬物で昏睡させられてから、あの場所へ運ばれ、腹部を切開、回復。
Rendered unconscious, carried.
意図的に臓器を引きずり出して、四方に散らしてみせました。
昏睡では、回復は死後ではなく。
Yeah.
なんて。むごい。
Yeah. The girl's prediction was right on the mark. I'm pretty sure she was more detailed about the other deaths that led up to her own. For example, I think she said that the housewife was beaten to death upon the 4th year, had her head split open. And in that case, she did know her own death would be so... Did she know that her own death would be so terrible? There must have been some moments where she wanted to doubt the validity of her own predictions. But as people died exactly as prophesied, and as the years passed, that prophecy would only come closer to fruition. And then, facing the final year, unable to struggle against her own destiny, her all-too-young life was snuffed out. And in such a cruel way. Knowing that her days were numbered and unable to fight the tide of events heralding her end, my heart ached at her helplessness.
この死に方ですが、どうも単なる猟奇趣味ってわけじゃないみたいなんです。
Yeah, it seemed more the ritual.
と言いますのはですね、Hinamizawaはかつて鬼が住んでたって話は以前もしましたよね。
But it's so odd if they were ritualistic and like faith-based, why target her?
そんな話も聞きましたっけ？
Hinamizawa村のお祭りのWatanagashiってのは、そもそもWatanagashi、つまり臓物流しから転じたものらしいんです。なんでも人食い鬼たちが犠牲者をばらして内臓を川に捨てた、というところから転じたらしいんですよ。
つまりHinamizawa村においては内臓を引きずり出すことに
で、Hinamizawa村の昔話によるとですね、人食い鬼と人間が仲良く暮らすための調停者として、お社様という神様が降臨しているってことになってるらしい。
Okay.
確か、フルでリカはそのお社様の生まれ変わりだと言われてるんでしたね。
So then why would they do that?
ねえ。ですから、その荒人神であるフルデリカを回復して殺すのは、村の信仰に対するこれ以上ない冒涜行為と言えるわけです。
Maybe it's like a revenge plot or a perversion of the ritual itself. Like, could it be people who were tired of living under the threat of the curse, and like as the curse kept materializing every year, actually being real? Maybe it was like a retaliation of people who were terrified of living underneath it, but also couldn't risk, leaving because that would mean they could be the next target. And so maybe they did it as a kind of like rebellion, maybe. And then like it's kind of like sacrilege, the idea of it being of taking something sacred and perverting it. So performing a ritual sacrifice that's supposed to be a part of a holy ceremony or a representation of a holy ceremony, and utilizing it against the very person who's supposed to be revered in that same discipline. It's like how Romans would take early Christians and hang them on crosses because the Christians revered the Christ's death on a cross, and so they would like purposely crucify Christians as a way to try and like discredit their faith. I think even the story goes, I don't know if it's true obviously, but like the story of the Peter, like the first apostle of Christ, was going to be crucified, and I've heard stories where he requested to be crucified upside down so as not to be like to not represent his like his master, or if it was done purposely to be cruel so that he could be like an anti-symbol of what he professed. I don't know that part for sure, but that's the idea of like maybe it's a flip of the ritual onto the one who was seen as the perpetrator or the vessel of the like Watanagashi deaths.
信仰への冒涜。それはつまり、お社様への冒涜ということですね。
あとは赤坂さんも知っての通りです。お社様のたたりが起こるのはその晩のことです。
Hinamizawa大災害。
The official explanation was that some swamp upstream erupted with toxic volcanic gas which enveloped the village, which is a real thing. Carbon monoxide buildup under like pools of water can suddenly erupt when they hit like a pressure point, and it can, but because the gas is heavy, if it happens in a low lying or a valley area, it can just flood like everything, and you would never wake up. Your body doesn't know to recognize that it's choking on this stuff.
発生した沼は鬼ヶ淵沼と言いまして、Hinamizawa村の旧名鬼ヶ淵村の名前の源となった沼です。村の言い伝えでは、この沼の奥底は地獄につながっているそうで、かつて村にやってきた人食い鬼たちはこの沼から訪れたのだとか。
Dang.
できすぎですね。
いやいやいや、まだまだできすぎてますよ。村には伝承がありまして、お社様がお怒りになられると、地獄の釜が開いて正気が溢れ出す、なんて言うんですよ。
So that implies that they had kind of predicted it.
村人にとって、地獄というのは沼の底のこと。つまりそこから正気が溢れ出して村を襲うということ。
そう。つまり、フルでリカ子とお社様の生まれ変わりが冒涜される殺され方をしたので、お社様がお怒りになってたたりとしてあの大災害を起こしたと。そういう話がまかり通っちゃってるんですよ。
つまり、あの大災害は人為的なもの。
確かに話ができすぎてますからね。
Yeah.
お社様のたたりが実在せず、本当の偶発的事故でもないってんなら、そう疑いたくもなりますよね。
That's the problem, though. It's too convenient to just be like magic. A wry smile formed on Ooishi's face as he listened to my absurd take on things. He wore an expression as though, even though it was absurd, there was a time he had thought the same thing as well.
村の信仰をめぐって狂信的な一派があったと仮定し、
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
彼らがお社様のお怒りがあるような状況を作り出し、大災害を実行してみせた。
Well, that feels a bit much. Like, that would mean they somehow had enough gas to destroy an entire village.
もちろん、私は笑いませんよ。私も一度ならずともそう考えたことはあります。ですが、Hinamizawa村がいかに小さい村とはいえ、人口は1000人以上。それを一夜にして抹殺するなんて、どう考えても現実的じゃないです。
Yeah, exactly. And not that perfectly. The gas eruption was believed to have happened around 2 a.m., several hours before dawn. In that sort of amount of time, going around and killing all the villagers in a way that made it look like poison gas didn't seem feasible at all. And it killed a lot of animals too. Like, there's too much evidence that the gas thing was real. It's interesting. I mean, it's kind of crazy too. I think I mentioned it back when that happened, but like my grandfather lived up in a lake in Montana that had a massive earthquake that occurred. And like, I think it was like, like 200 or 300 people died. Like, and that's the crazy thing is that like so many people died because of like the earthquake and collapsing like a rock slide that happened because the area was very like dispopulated. Like there wasn't a lot of people there, but it was peak tourist season and there were a lot of campers and stuff, like people visiting and like exploring and enjoying nature. And it still was that significant. If a disaster like it happened and there had been a town like in the valley in the way of that rock slide, it would have been basically like a Hinamizawa disaster. It would have been wiped off the map and everyone would have died. It's crazy. Well, gas erupted, still have religious significance.
だとしたら、沼に何か仕掛けがあって、神の裁きをいつでも再現できるような何かがあった。
How would that happen though? Modern technology would struggle to do that, let alone ancient technology.
自衛隊の発表では沼が発生源だということになってますよね。調査チームとかが詳しく調べた上での発表ですからね。そんな仕掛けがあったら見つけてると思いますけどね。
Yeah, and like the feasibility, like this is more of a grasping at straws. But that's the sad thing is that like they're trying to find a argument that it was a man-caused disaster, like it was an intentional disaster that had no like religious like connotations or metaphysical like sources, and they aren't finding any evidence of it.
沼そのものに仕掛けがあるとは限りませんよ。ほら、 聞いたことありませんか？
What?
遠くの泉の水が枯れたら、村の泉も枯れた。なんて昔話。
何ですかそりゃ。
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about.
水源ってのは、地下水脈等で繋がっていることが多いんです。
Okay, okay.
沼や泉は、それが地上に露出した部分に過ぎません。
つまり赤坂さんが言いたいのは、鬼ヶ淵沼とつながった別の沼か泉があって、それに何らかの仕掛けをすると、鬼ヶ淵沼の圧力とか水圧とかそういうものがいろいろ変わって毒ガスが噴出する仕掛けを大昔の村人がこさえていたと。
That's kind of insane. You're assuming that like even 100 years ago, let alone the like several hundred years ago that this like culture has been around, that in the 1800s when guns were like revolvers were the new shiny technology, and like steel iron hull ships were like all shiny and new. And Japan, if I recall correctly, was fairly isolated on the global scale. That somehow these remote villagers understood aquifer systems and connections between swamps enough to be able to rig up some type of artifice technology that was going to be able to remotely accumulate gas in Onagafuchi, and it could be remotely detonated as a type of bioweapon that only became enacted, maintained itself properly to be functional for over 100 years, and then and was able to be activated. Like, that's magic makes more sense than that.
そういう話ですよね。
Ooishi laughed heartily, commending the fact that the young uns had such a flexible way of thinking. That was a former detective in him. Even though it was a hypothesis that he didn't come up with, he still had the presence of mind to not dismiss it right away. I don't.
面白い話です。それが立証できたら、日本の犯罪史始まって以来の空前規模の大量殺人ってことになりますよ。
Hinamizawa村の封鎖が解除されたら、ぜひ調べるべきだと思います。大石さんは、県警にはまだ影響力は？
そこそこには。柔道部の名誉顧問ですからね。今でも夏の合宿やなんかにはちょくちょく出かけてます。
Okay.
Hinamizawa村の封鎖解除がいつになるかわかりませんが、ぜひ調べさせてください。
Okay.
わかりました。
大石さんはこの、Hinamizawa村連続開始事件、通称、お社様のたたりを、
当時の署内は、村人の圧力でぎゅうぎゅうでしてね。連続事件は存在しないというのが当時の公式見解でした。事件は個々で、またそれぞれに解決していると。
バカな。村の信仰に基づいた連続事件であることは明白なのに。
赤坂さん、そりゃ5年も続いて派手な最後があった今だから言えることですよ。
Right.
あの当時は偶然の事件が偶然にも綿流しの日に起こる。
Yeah, and even if like they didn't believe it, which Ooishi didn't, there was only so much he could do when the official stance, was even starting to threaten him for looking into stuff.
今年は起きないといいな、なんて感じだったんです。
偶然なものか。少女は初めから全て予言していた。
少女？
古出リカです。あの子は私にその後の事件を全て予告してみせました。
赤坂さん、そりゃ本当ですか？
はい、あの子は言ったんです。翌年、ダムの現場監督が殺され、死体をバラバラにされると。
Akasaka, there's a big problem here where if you had that, you know what you should have done? When the first one happened exactly as she said, you should have talked to Ooishi about it and confided in him. The second year, when things lined up, you should have made a formal report and an investigation launched. The fact that you're saying this now, how are you supposed to vindicate or validate this, right? You could also just be claiming things. Like, people claim in hindsight all the time. Do you know how many people after 9/11 claimed they had prophesied or had a vision about it happening years before? It's convenient when you can just claim that you knew stuff before it happened when nothing could be done and you didn't do anything about it.
のみにとどまらず、 その後に続く連続事件をすべて、私に予告してみせました。
赤坂さんがその話を聞いたのは、昭和の何年の話ですか？
私が少女と出会ったのは、誘拐事件調査の折ですから。
バラバラ殺人の前年に？
Wrinkles formed between Oishi's eyebrows. He closed his eyes and began to digest what I just told him.
赤坂さん、フルで理科が神通力で未来が分かった。なんて話がなしだとするなら。
はい。
今さら私を驚かせるための作り話だ。
Yeah, you should
なん
have.
て言ったら本気で怒りますよ。
He made it clear he even was like kind of following the stories. Why didn't he say anything?
私は、真実を話しています。連続開始事件は、発生の前年には、もうすべてシナリオが用意されていた。そしてその予告の通り、フルでリカは殺されました。私ははじめ、大災害による死を指したものと思っていた。でも、彼女の死は災害ではなく、殺人者の手による残忍なものであることが分かりました。彼女は殺されると言った。彼女は自分の死を、具体的にあの時点で知っていたんです。
なら、フルでリカは、どうして逃げ出さなかったんですかね。
Yeah.
仮に、そういった死のシナリオがすでに出来上がっていたとして、
The only reason why I can think why she wouldn't is if she believed that no matter what she did, it would still happen.
彼女はそれを知りかつ、数年という猶予期間があったわけですよね。逃げ出すなり、警察に相談するなりの時間はあったはずです。なぜ抗わずに、自らの死を受け入れたんです。
わかりません。
フルでリカは、村の年寄り連中に可愛がられてはいましたがね。両親を失った後は、親類もゼロで身寄りはなく、親しい友人と肩を寄せ合うだけの孤独な生活でしたからね。戦う力も、頼れる人間も、身近にはいなかったのかもしれません。
彼女は自分の死に対して、誰かに SOS を発しはしなかったんでしょうか？
Maybe you?
村と警察が穏便な関係じゃなかったのは、赤坂さんも知られるところだと思います。少なくとも、私の耳には、フルでリカが自身の身柄の保護を求めてきたという情報はありません。あるいは、自身が宗教的な生贄にされることに対し、定感というか、達観というか、そういうものがあったのかもしれませんね。
そんなはずはない。
I spoke decisively. At the time she said it, she definitely said that she wanted to live happily, that she wanted to spend her time surrounded by her dear friends. She hadn't given up on life, she had hoped to keep on living. At that moment I became dumbstruck.
どうしました？
Yeah, you just realized you were her call for help?
赤坂さん？
いえ。
I fell into silence. Ooishi folded his arms and began murmuring in contemplation again. Eventually, he stood up and headed toward the hallway to find the hostess, yelling he wanted pen and paper. When Ooishi, noisy even though he was just thinking, left, the room immediately fell into a chilled silence. I stood up. It was then when I realized I was drunk enough to be unsteady on my feet. When I slid open the window, a beautiful yet somehow ephemeral moon drifted across the night sky. It was just now that I realized. She hadn't accepted her own death. She wanted to keep living, happily and joyously. She had said that quite clearly to me. But I was a fool. I hadn't been asked explicitly, so I hadn't realized it. She'd made it clear as day she didn't want to die. Wasn't that her cry for help? Yeah! She didn't say as much as she wanted that she wanted help. But even given that, it wasn't as though she wasn't looking for salvation. Without any family and unable to trust the police, she instead told somebody without any relation to the village, somebody from a faraway place, me. And she even spared you the grief of finding out your wife had died, so that she could have you at a moment of clarity and talk to you. Good grief, man. Help me. You idiot. She'd gone around and cut the phone cords. If I'd made that phone call and learned Yuki's death, I probably would have fallen into despair. If I was in that state, even if she were looking for help, her cries would have fallen on deaf ears. That's why. Knowing everything, she'd cut the phone cords. She wanted even a little time to seek help from me. Ooishi, just before now, had lamented that one of the younger officers had gotten mixed up in the case, having been erased because he wasn't there. I was feeling the same way. If only I was there in June of 1983. Or, you know, the 3 years leading up to it when could have established that, yeah, her predictions were accurate. Maybe we should do something. I could have predicted her. In 1983, it would have been 5 years since the kidnapping took place. Whilst raising my only daughter Yuki had left me, putting all my youth and passion into my work, honing my wits and courage wrestling with difficult cases, nothing like my failing during the kidnapping incident would have occurred. I wouldn't have been slow to react to the one-on-one fight, at which point jumping into a foreign mafia-run gambling parlors where I'd learned to deal with the automatic weapons, let alone handguns. I'd grown so much that in 1983 I couldn't have even compared to how I was in 1987. That's why, if I were by her side, I should have been able to save her life. No matter what conspiracy or foul plots drew near, I definitely would have protected her. She, even though sounding resigned, should have still been able to ask me for help. I just didn't realize it. I couldn't realize it. Just that I wouldn't have realized it if I were told Yuki's accident. I wasn't able to realize it. I wanted to cry. If I had taken her words to heart, I would have prevented Yuki's accident. And I would have been able to protect the girl whom I owed a debt from even premature death. She must have been expecting that from me. I learned about the disaster while watching television in my house. Until I learned about that, I'd forgotten about Hinamizawa. In order to recover from the shock of Yuki's death, I tried to remove everything about the place from my memory. Okay. Alright. That's a fair point. What an ungrateful fool I was. Even though I was in exchange for saving her, the girl had told me of a way to save Yuki. I was unable to accept her gratitude, and now here we were. She hadn't died in her sleep due to a natural disaster. She was split open while still alive, killed while suffering a disgrace of having her organs torn out. She must have known beforehand on the day of that year she would be killed in such a terrifying way. But even knowing what end awaited her, she was all too weak. A lone girl without anybody to rely upon, unable to seek help, had to swallow her own predetermined death, and left this mortal coil. She said she wanted to live. She said she just wanted to live happily. That's all she wanted. She didn't ask for anything extravagant. For any person that was ever born, it was the very basest of desires. She never said a peep about wanting money or that she wished that she was somebody else's station. She had said it. If all deaths were preordained, and hers was probably all also according to plan. She might have been a lone, frail girl, but I don't think she would have accepted it all without at least putting up a fight. There must have been, in some small way, some form of resistance that she mustered. And with what she could muster, seeking my help was part of that. I howled. I stomped the floor. Why did I become a police officer in the first place? How could I call myself an officer if I couldn't save a single girl from the misfortune that was awaiting her? Was it because there was so much going on at the time I couldn't process the fact that she was asking for help? Yeah, that's right. I was still green. If I was in that situation now, I would have definitely been able to help her. But it was already all over. Even if I wanted to settle the regrets she left behind, Hinamizawa, as a dangerous area, was still quarantined. Most of the people involved were already dead. The few that did remain spread around the country, unable to be traced. The stage of that tragedy was still off limits as well. The police investigation was put on hold, the case slowly being buried in the sands of time. Oh, by the way, I also mentioned before how the disaster, if Keiichi's parents were gone and he died there, how crappy that would be. He didn't die in the Satoko ending, but he would have died in all the others. I guess maybe not the Mion one because he was technically out of the village in the hospital. Huh. Interesting. Just like how I wouldn't have known unless Ooishi had asked me about it.
Akasaka-san, 大丈夫ですか?
At some point, Ooishi had returned with a notebook in hand. Until I saw the expression on Ooishi's face, I didn't realize that I was in tears.
私は気づけなかった。少女の助けに気づけなかった。
赤坂さん、落ち着いてください。
でも、もう全部遅いんです。少女は殺された。こんなにも無残な殺され方で。私は頼られたのに。救えなかった。
Good voice acting.
救えなかった。
村人と良好な関係を築かなかった私にも責任があるかもしれません。フルでリカが私にそれを打ち明けてくれたなら、 私だって救いの手を差し伸べられたかもしれない。彼女が打ち明けに足る信頼を築けなかった。後悔しています。
When Ooishi said the word trust, it weighed on me even more. Yes, she had given me her trust. She trusted me, meaning that she thought that I would be able to ward off the fate of her foreseen death. She believed in that. I cried. I fell on my hands and knees as I began to bawl. Eventually, Ooishi spoke quietly.
赤坂さん、悔しいですか？
悔しいです。
ならば、フルでリカの仇を取るに値する方法が一つだけあります。
そんな方法があるんですか？
Ooishi showed me the pen and notebook.
フルでリカの死を悼むためにも、せめて私たちで真相を。
Yeah.
そうです。フルでリカだけじゃない。大勢が死にました。彼らの無念は計り知れません。でも彼らの死は、あの大災害でうやむやにされ、今は捜査すらされることなく、忘却の彼方に葬られようとしています。大勢死んだ。おやつさんも殺された。クマちゃんも消された。みんな犠牲にあった。なのに警察は捜査もできないでいる。誰に無念が晴らせるのか。私たちだけなんですよ。赤坂さん。
私たちに
We find the truth.
真相が。
Interesting.
明かせますよ。連続開始事件のすべての現場を踏み、村の裏事情に精通する私と、連続開始事件の前年にフルでリカから重要な真実を明かされたあなたとなら。
でも、もう死んでしまったんですよ。
そうです。フルでリカは死にました。あなたが青2歳だったから救えなかった。
Ooishi grabbed me, who was a wreck, and lifted me firmly by the lapels.
だから、その償いとして、真相を究明するんです。
I like it.
あなたの話が事実なら、すべての事件は計画ということになる。そうならば、調べ方は全然変わってくるんですからね。
Interesting.
私は、今夜をかけて、あなたと私の持つすべての情報をノートにまとめ、明日の朝一番で元の部下たちと連絡を取るつもりです。あの事件を終わらせるものか。
Interesting, because he's implying too, like, if it was orchestrated and wasn't metaphysical, then, like, the targets, methods of death, they were all determined a while, like, before, maybe even that year before, and maybe she just overheard it somehow. That could be the argument you could make that keeps it, like, grounded in a reality. Like, what if, like, some part of this cult organization that I keep referencing decided a while back, like they'd predetermined all their targets. They already knew exactly who was going to die and when, and they were like, the plan was to carry it out over the course of several years.
絶対に暴いてやるんです。
暴く
ねえ、あれから数年が経過しましたが、時効ではない。
Ah, okay.
捜査は中断であっても終了ではない。まだ続いているんです。続けさせるんです。
ええ、やりましょう。大石さん、このまま
I won't let
終
it
わら
end
せ
like
たりなんか
this.
しない。絶対。私たちがこの真相を暴いてみせるんです。絶対に。
I demonstrated my resolve to Ooishi by crying out those words. And just then...
Papa?
Aww. The sliding door behind me opened, and Miyuki revealed herself while sleepily rubbing her eyes. My shouting must have awoken her, then she rushed over to me.
どうしたのパパ。
Aww.
パパ、泣いてるの
She's so cute.
ああ、なんでもない。なんでもないよ。みゆき。
I tried hard to smile while wiping away my tears, and though Miyuki looked like she was about to cry herself, she extended her little hand to me.
大丈
Aww.
夫
Aww, she's so cute.
また怖い夢を見たの泣かないでパパ。
And when she makes that gesture toward me, I saw the fingers of another girl overlap with hers. in her innocent gaze and innocent expression felt strangely nostalgic, filling me with painful moment. A girl who couldn't be here because I didn't reach out to her. She borrowed my daughter's body to offer me words of comfort.
Akasaka.
Aww. Dang.
泣かないでくださいなのです。
It might be a hallucination, maybe a convenient illusion formed from my selfish dreams. However, that was her voice, I'm certain I heard it. Rather than blaming me for my mistakes, she was compassionate.
ああ。泣くものか。泣くよりもまず、私にはやるべきことがある。みゆき、パパはね、お前が生まれる前に、Hinamizawaってところだ。天使みたいな。
天使？本当に？
ああ。可愛くて、優しくて、みゆきにも、合わせてあげたかったな。
I need to check something real quick. Okay, so it won't change right here. Right, that's already an impossible wish. Okay. Console, remake, and original. She's just not here. Okay. The future's already gone.
じゃあみゆき、その子とお友達になりたい。
Man, they gave her a lot of attention. I wonder if she's going to become like a character. Or maybe she's somehow like... Are the answer arcs going to be occurring after the Hinamizawa disaster? That would be interesting. I assumed it was going to be replays again, but from different perspectives.
楽しみだな。
Oh, that's such Rena energy right there.
今度みゆきも連れて行ってね。ひなみざわに。
Even so, there's still something I can do.
ああ。そうだね。いつか一緒に、会いに行こう。
Wait, how does she even know it's Hinamizawa?
必ず。
That's kind of weird. Someday, I'm sure, we will see her again. That summer, the Higurashi cried in Hinamizawa. Ooishi and I vowed to bring the truth of the case to light and stood up. Everything ended in 1985. I, at least wanting to apologize, had searched for her grave. At the state autopsy, her remains were entrusted to one of the shrine's followers. In the future, when the quarantine on the Hinamizawa area was lifted, they would be returned to her family grave. However, unsure who exactly took the remains of Rika today, until today I couldn't even apologize to her. In the future, when the quarantine in Hinamizawa is lifted, all I could do then was wait until whoever that person is to return to the grave. What I could do now was not apologize to her. Instead, until I was able to meet her again, I would reveal the truth and dispel her regrets. Even now, sporadic eruptions of gas in the Hinamizawa area meant that the prospect of a quarantine being lifted wasn't happening anytime soon. More likely, it seemed like she had no intention of meeting me again until I found the truth. That's why the quarantine wouldn't be lifted, or so I thought. Until the day I grasped the truth. It was the following year. Ooishi and I co-authored a book on the string of mysterious deaths leading up to the great Hinamizawa disaster. I decided on the title, Higurashi, When They Cry. Oh, okay. That was before, because those few days I was in Hinamizawa, the sound that I remembered most was the cry of the Higurashi. I could only wish that based on this book, these people involved with the incident could refresh their memories and bring to light a new truth. And more importantly, that nothing like this ever happens again. I wrote this in the afterword. Why
こ
did
の
this?
惨劇がどうして起こされたのか、私たちだけでは真相に至ることが叶いません。
It's both of them together. And aren't these the same phrases that
どうかこれを
Keiichi
読んだあな
says?
た、真相を解き明かしてください。
Aww,
それだけが私たちの願いです。
that's kind of cool. I like that. Please discover the truth. If you're reading this, that's us. This year, the quarantine in Hinamizawa still hasn't been lifted. When They Cry. Alright. It's been unlocked. The all-cast review session has become available. Play, select extra. Unfortunately, I do think we should wait for this, because whilst I would love to dive into it, we have been here for a while. There's a lot to digest here. Oh. Continued waiting for the quarantine to lift. I guess we could just do a super long episode. Do a dare. You know what? Screw it. Let's do it. We'll just have a really long one. All cast review.
この度は日暮の泣く頃に水暇つぶしをプレイしてくださり
It almost makes me
誠に
wonder.
ありがとうございます。
It makes you wonder that if the next chapters are going to be like the answers are going to be after like the quarantine's lifted. And we heard before that Mion, somebody said that the plan is like, because they said at the end of the last story that Shion is going to be the character focus. And if that's the case, what if it's like a collection of her memories and about her returning to Hinamizawa after the disaster? Because it's pretty likely that she was out of town when it happened. So she might be one of the only survivors of the Sonozaki core family. And maybe she goes back to kind of put things to rest, and that's why we see things from her perspective. And maybe she is going to be motivated by the book and want to find the truth, because she already wanted to find out the truth after Satoshi went missing and everything else, right? Yeah, okay. I really think that's what the plan is. The plan is like post-disaster investigation done by different people. You.
いやいや、なんだかんだと言いましても、今回のシナリオは私の独壇場でしたからね。
Kinda.
しかも渋いジャズ調なテーマ曲まで追加。これで笑えなきゃどこで笑えって言うんですかね。なははは。
というわけで、大石はそろそろ出過ぎなのですよ。
それはどういう意味ですか、リカ？
言葉通りの意味じゃーい。あれだけ出番があってここまで出張ろうとは身の程をわきまえないにも程がございましたよ。
Gotcha. Not that you two made any appearance at all here. You were like, oh no, Mion did technically. You two didn't make any appearance here. Your name was dropped, and Retta, you existed, I'm sure.
今回はメインヒロインはリカちゃん以外みんな出番ほとんどなかったからね。
Mion did.
今回は箸休め的なシナリオだからとは聞いてたけど、ここまでメイン勢がないがしろにされるとは思わなかったよ。
But Mion, you were still there.
ミオンさんはまだいい方ではございませんの。
Exactly.
多少は登場していましたよ。私とレナさんなんか気配も出てきませんですわ。
Yeah, true.
レナはジャケットにも登場してますですからまだマシなのですよ。
Now she's on the box art. It's fine.
ということはつまり何ですの？
Oh, yeah. It doesn't matter that you're not there, Satoko.
私だけが一人のけ者で出番なしということなんでございますの？ニパー。
Stop nipping your way out of everything.
私だけこの扱いはひどいですわ。かわいそうですよ。きっとだんだん扱いが悪くなって最後には悪役に転落しているに違いないのですよ。
That's horrible.
そんなのあんまりですわ。そんなことないよ。さとこちゃんのことが好きな人だって大勢いるんだもん。そんなひどい扱いになんかならないよね。こんな扱い嫌ですの。
It would have been interesting if they had at least like a little side story with like these two. Like even if it was like a tiny little like a tips thing.
きっと次こそ出番がいっぱいあると思うな。
The other thing too is like Rena's like when she snapped and went kind of like crazy. Was that around the same time? Like it wouldn't have been that year that we just saw, but like when did that actually happen? Like what year? I guess it was the year before Keiichi moves there, right? Or like she just arrived when Satoshi, and like she'd only been there a little bit when Satoshi, when the Watanagashi with Satoko's like aunt and Satoshi happened.
思うな。元気出してこね。
しかし 今回のシナリオはおまけ的なシナリオとは聞いてたけど、
Yeah.
実際どうよ。
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel like it.
なんだか随分話がややこしくなったように思うんだけど。
It's probably the writer saying, like, we thought this was going to be a straight thing, and then it kind of blew up.
僕には難しくてよくわかんないお話だったのですよ。何しろ信じられなかったのが、連続開始事件が起こる前の年にもうリカちゃんがそれを知っていたなんて。
Yeah, that's interesting.
ってことはつまり全ての事件は最初から予定されたシナリオってことになるんだよね。
Which is crazy, because, like, why would you plan things out so far in advance?
これはかなり大きい情報だよ。
That really is, though, because, like, it changes how we see this a lot, because we always were making the assumption that the deaths were being determined year to year, like whoever was like the next like enemy of the village. But that would mean that the plan was like predetermined. If it was not like mystical, it was predetermined mechanically and orchestrated like in advance, like well in advance, like that the things were progressing according to that plan, basically beat for beat, word for word, including like the way that people were going to be killed. And it's like that level of coordination, planning, and control just it really changes the scope of who could have possibly been behind that. Because it's like, I don't know, it's so specific. It's tough for me to come up with an idea of like who exactly would be a primary suspect.
僕がきっと巫女なので、お社様のお告げで未来が分かったに違いないのですよ。
That is the easy explanation.
人間犯人説の私としてはそれは真っ先に否定したいところだな。
Agree, Mion. I like to deny it too.
レナはたたり派なんで、ひなみ沢を見守るお社様の生まれ変わりであるリカちゃんにそういう神通力もひょっとするとあったんじゃないかなって思うな。
That also means though that you like accept the idea that Rika just allowed all that to happen and didn't try and preserve her own life.
ああ、ダメダメ。人間派はそういう得体の知れないファンタジーは一切認めないの。事件は全て人間の仕業。たたりも魔法もイカサマもズルも一切なし。
Aimbots or cheat codes. I mean, the other option too I started bringing up recently is the idea like, what if it's kind of both? What if there is like a very logical explanation for like the targets of the curse, but that there is some type of metaphysical thing also going on, because there are just really weird things that can't be explained very readily. One of the biggest ones is Keiichi's story when he decided to commit the Watanagashi murder himself, when he gets the wrong person and somehow like that whole idea that like all that weird stuff that happened where it felt like there were two Keiichis and all that, like that stuff just got bizarre. Because that almost makes me feel like somebody like orchestrated and planned out a scenario and then the universe bent to make sure it happened, right? That's weird.
僕は魔法とか使えたら素敵だと思いますのですよ。リカちゃんならなんとなくそういうのが使えてもいいかなって思うな。は
まあ人間派にとっては最後の最後でとにかくこれはでかい情報だね。
Yes, I think that is true. That's a big point.
最初の事件からリカちゃんが殺され大災害に至るまでが全てシナリオ。
Everything was scripted until Rika died.
つまり丸々一つの事件だったってことが分かるだけで推理材料は格段に増えるんだから。
Because here's another thing you think about too. If you also look at all the targets, right? Was it ever a Sonozaki that got targeted? I don't think there ever was. And what did all the targeting do in the end? It eliminated basically everybody of influence in the other two families. Like, I don't know about like Satoko's, like how her family's involved, except for the fact that they were considered like a detriment to the community as a whole, right? But like the Furude's would be, like if you look at it that way, the Furude family, the Shrine family, was systematically eliminated, every single one of them, until it culminated in Rika being the final sacrifice of the Furude family. And there's a decent chance that the mayor gets eliminated or like vanished, right? even in, because we don't know if he vanished or not in the Satoko ending, but he definitely gets vanished in the Mion ending, and might have been vanished in the Rena ending. And so if we take that into account, maybe it is a systematic elimination of the two of the three families, leaving only the Sonozakis. And the fact that we never see a Sonozaki victim, except for when Mion snaps and tries to take out Shion, like that really starts pointing at the Sonozakis being the orchestrators. And if we're talking like a large-scale plan, Mion's grandma might be a potential person to orchestrate something like that.
レナはこの予言こそつまりリカちゃんが神通力を使える証拠。
No, I don't think so. I think that like there is an explanation that Rika overheard and like understood more than adults thought. Maybe they're speaking in code. Remember how I can't remember her name. Oyasho or Oryu? That's right, Oryu. She can speak in ways that sounds like on the surface kind of placid and normal, but are interpreted as instructions. That's something we saw very clearly here. If she was able to orchestrate all of this in that way, and we know Rika was allowed to like be in those meetings a lot, but they just assume she's just this goofy kid. But we know that she's very bright, that she's like far more mature and capable than she appears, and that she's got a lot more of like psychopathic tendencies, right? That she might have saw the pattern, understood, and was able to piece together through snippets of conversation this orchestrated plan and like how it was going to play out. And the cult people are the fanatics that were willing to do whatever she asked them to do, including taking out these other family members.
つまり、Hinamizawa村には不思議な力が存在するんだってことの証
It's
拠
funny,
になると思
I'm
ってる。
talking myself back into the it's not mysterious powers. I'm talking myself back into it is humans. I think there might be something there though, because again, like there's so much stuff that I just really can't I can't just ignore. But I think the actual murders of the Watanagashi festival system, I think that part at least is definitely just like conspiracy cultism. But like some of it, like the disaster, the gas disaster, that feels like such a stretch to try and think that that's human done. And I also think that there are aspects of like the way people behave and how crazy they get that just doesn't feel like it makes sense if you just believe it's just that everybody's just insane.
人間だけに起こせる事件じゃないことの証明になるんじゃないかな。
I think that the incidents were by humans alone, but there might be something else going on too.
僕は頭がこんがらがってわかんないです。
そうだそうだ、それよりもさ、今回リカちゃんが見せたあの表情、なんだか怖かったな。
It was cool actually. I liked it because it was deviating from all the scary looks you guys had.
みー。レナも驚いたな。可愛らしいリカちゃんがあんな笑い方をするとは思わなかったよ。
ねえ、ちょっとさ、もう一回あの顔をしてみせてよ。
嫌なこったなのですよ。
I don't wanna.
レナも劇中以外ではしてほしくないな。はぁ。停電かな？全員動くなでございましてよ。変な動きをしますとバルカン一斉射撃から誘導ミサイル連射、そしてとどめにレーザーサーベルめった切りをお見舞いしましてよ。
Okay, is this what?
サトコ？これは何の真似？
Right, obviously.
出番なし軍団、これよりお疲れ様会を占領させていただきましたよ。
Okay.
なんだか素敵な登場をありがとう。改めまして皆さん。
Yeah, you were only name drops this time.
いやー、まさかこんなところで出番があるとはな。思わぬ出番が嬉しいよ。さとこちゃん、ありがとう。
皆さんこんにちは。
Was the threat real?
あら、身動きなさらない方がいいと警告しましたよ。
They're traps, huh?
竜宮さん、大丈夫ですか？王女さん、ここまでやらなくても。
出番がなかった恨みは恐ろしいんですのよ。
Where's
本
Keiichi?
編の分までサトコが大活躍なのです。
I guess he's gonna call in probably at this point. Be like, hey, you forgot about me.
出番なしの恨みってわけか。くそー、いつの間にこれだけのトラップを。
And also, where's Shion?
ここがお疲れ様会の会場に選ばれた。その時点ですでに私のトラップにかかっていたということ。
そうか。あんたの後ろで糸を引いているやつがいるね。いるんでしょ？出てきなさい。
Here comes Shion. Yep.
ハロロ、マイシスター。
The random English is always
ごきげん
funny.
よ
しーちゃんだ。こんにちは。
Nope, he fell into it again.
同じ罠に2度もかかってかわいそうかわいそうです。
やっぱりシオンか。何気に主役張ったシナリオまであるのにこの狼藉。あんたやってくれるじゃないの。
Yeah.
怪盗編前の折り返しおまけシナリオとはいえ、お姉だけに出番を許すほど私も寛大じゃないってことです。まあそんなわけでちょっとサトコを焚きつけさせてもらいました。シオン、あんた何が望みなの？安全圏の確保とでも言いますか。昨今ですね、どういうわけかお姉がじりじりと票を伸ばしてるんですよね。
Oh, interesting.
共通ルートのみーちゃん萌えって意見が開発陣の間でも結構多いんだよ。
Crap, I was one of them too. Well, not infatuated, but she is still probably my favorite character.
恋路の悪いあんたのボロが出て、プレイヤー処刑はやっと私の魅力に気づいてきたってことだね。サトコもたたり殺しで高評価らしいし。
That's also true. Satoko won a lot of points in her arc.
レナやリカちゃんには根強い固定票があるし、あんたの人気もとっくに陰ってるってことだね。そういうわけで不穏に票を伸ばすお姉やサトコをここいらで一つ叩き落としておこうと思いまして。
You and Satoko.
こういう大仕掛けを打たせてもらったというわけです。
Did she like, wait, what?
シオンさん、今何と言いまして？
Trap time.
私も叩き落とすですって？
おちびちゃんは気づくのが遅いようで。そら！
にゃにゃにゃ
Yep. She out-trapped the trap master.
さよならレギュラーの皆さん。こんにちはイレギュラーの皆さん。あんたたちメインヒロインはこれでおしまいです。
Well, technically you're right. They are all dead.
シオンちゃん、そこまでやらなくてもいいんじゃないかな。
まあまあ二郎さん、面白いからほっときましょうよ。
Let's see what happens.
私たち二人の出番がいっぱい増えるのよ。
The number of appearances for the both of us is gonna go up.
二郎さんは私と一緒。いや。
You probably shouldn't. I'm pretty sure you kill him.
そんなことないよ。
先生までしーちゃんに買収されちゃったんですか？
ごめんね竜宮さ
She
ん。
gave me curry.
シオンさんが次回のシナリオからは教えて知恵先生のコーナーを作ってくれるっていうから。
Ah.
さてと、誰から恥ずかしい処刑をしてあげましょうかね。大仕掛けを手伝ってくれたお礼にサトコからかな。
それは許しませんよ。
Oh.
トーン
Hey, of course he's here.
監督、なんだか珍しく頼もしく見えますわ。
Not gonna last.
サトコちゃんに対する狼藉は私入江京介が許すわけにはいきません。私も脇役一派ではありますが、懐柔できると思わないことですよ。
ありゃ、この後に収録予定の実録サトコメイド教育着せ替え編の主役は降板したいと？
How could you? Well, he's done.
シオン様、この入江
一生どこまでもついてまいります。
Satoko
怪
betrayed.
獣早っ。さーて、これで全て私の支柱ですね。これからはお疲れ様会もシナリオも
Shit, you're too evil.
全て私の思うままに進めさせてもらいますね。あれ、一人足りない。
シオン様、竜宮さんがいません。
Oh.
いつの間に抜け出したのか。
Uh-oh. She's gonna get her bat.
竜宮さん、さっき身動きしてはいけませんって言ったはずですよ。
レナちゃん、悪いことは言わない。抵抗しない方が無難だよ。
Good grief, it is like a coup.
レナ、悪いけどこんなやり方おかしいと思います。
Yeah, it really is. It feels like it's a big distraction.
それは何の真似？目明かし編の台本？なるほど。登場回数を削られる前に確保しておこうという魂胆ね。
This
無
futile.
駄な抵抗を。
The Borg are here.
レナさん、無駄な抵抗はよして、おとなしくした方がいいと思います。
You know, I almost want to. Well, it was be interesting to hear because I wonder what lines they used if they did dubbing for Star Trek in Japanese when the Borg are around. I wonder what like the words they chose for stuff like that because that'd be interesting.
私をあんまり怒らせると、あなただけでなく、お姉たちの処遇も変わってくることになりますよ。台本を確保したくらいじゃ何もできないよ。
Oh.
レナ、ここは悔しいけど言う通りにした方が。
大丈夫、安心して。
Oh, she's in anger mode.
この目明かし編の台本が加わったことでレナたちはこの状況を逆転できるの。逆転？一体どんな秘策があるというんですの？
レナさんは結構笑わせるのがうまいですね。なら試してみたらどうです？その逆転ってやつを試しに見せてください。
しーちゃんは甘えてる。
Oh,
本
oh.
編にいくら出番がなかったからってこうしてお疲れ様会でこれだけの出番を得ているのに甘えてるよ。
私がいつ甘えたって言うんです？
Hmm.
しーちゃんは分かってない。たとえお疲れ様会だけといえども出演し他のシナリオにもあれだけ登場しておいてそんなしーちゃんをね許すことができない地獄の怨嗟がほら聞こえてこない？
Who? What?
そうか、わかりましたわ。
そうか、ケイちゃんか。そうだよね、お疲れ様会はいつも出番なし。
Oh,
そ
right.
のケイちゃんを差し置いてお疲れ様会占領なんてケイちゃんが許すはずがない。
Oh, okay. But usually you just call
な
it
るほ
in.
ど。で、その未だに収録居残り中のケイちゃんがどうやってここへ現れると？まさかケイちゃんを私たちの誰かが追い抜いたわけでもあるまいに。
It's true. He probably says the most lines in most of these games.
そう思うのがしーちゃんの慢心だよ。
いけない。あれは赤坂編の収録ワード数票。知恵先生、レナちゃんを取り押さえて。
Uh-oh.
もう遅いよ。いよいよ出番だよ。
It's like she's summoning him. Oh gosh, she did! Here he comes.
その声はケイちゃん？まさかケイちゃんは収録居残り中のはず。
そうさ。今まではそうだった。収録居残りのたびに、残りワード数で誰かを抜けば、お疲れ様会に参加してもいいよと言われ続けて、それでも他のキャラと比べても2倍、あるいは3倍以上もある分量をこなすなど不可能。
But because he wasn't in this one at all.
というか、最初から参加させる気ないだろ、音響監督さんよー
Probably.
と思って諦めてきたが、ついに俺は抜いたあるキャラを。
Really?
シオン、これを見やがれ
え？
そう、主役として登場パターンが増えたシオンは、当然喋るワード数も、これまでの2倍。
Oh. So she's the main character. She's going to be speaking a lot. And she actually has a lot of lines in the other ones too.
しかもミオンとキャストが同じだから、さらに2倍
That's devious.
その結果、俺はようやく、ついに居残り免除。そしてシオン、今度はお前が居残りだ。
嘘。私、次の目明かしでこんなに喋るんですか？ケイちゃんが約500で、シオンは、2700超え！これ、普通のアドベンチャーゲームなら全キャラの総合係数だよ。
Yeah.
しかもこれに、ミーの数が加わるのです。その数やなんと。
聞きたくない聞きたくない
That is crazy that that's the same voice actor doing both their voices, overlapping, and they actually still sound like different characters. It's pretty close, but there's a little bit of difference. That's cool.
というわけでだ。レナ、感謝するぜ。月にすら見放され、真の闇が地上を覆いしとき。
So that's black. Is it just black? Okay, I was wondering if maybe one of the other versions has him here.
漆黒の魔王、前原圭一、降臨。
Okay, buddy, calm down. I see. If it's like this, he can appear even if he doesn't have any character art. There's no character or background art. This is really easy on the production staff.
シオン！まるで自分が悲劇の主人公みたいな振る舞いだったが、俺から見れば実に滑稽千万。少しいい気になりすぎたみたいだな。お疲れ様会の旅に
It's kind of fun having him back.
常に居残りになって異老の一杯にすらありつけなかった俺の怒りを、恨みを、悲しみを今こそ教えてくれるぜ。
なんだかケイチくん、悪の化身みたいだな。
化身じゃない、魔王と言ってもらいたいぜ。
Oh boy.
そして俺が抑圧された悪夢の中で手に入れた闇の力はまさに無限大で無料体数。
This is starting to feel less like an after party and more just like a bunch of goofy.
俺による俺のために作り出したこの闇の
I
世
guess
界で
that's true
は
though, because if you think
俺
about
に
it,
逆らうことは何人にもかなわぬのだ。
I'm like not even listening anymore. But if you think about it, in all the other games, we get to have like goofy shenanigans with like Keiichi and the team. This game was very serious because it was just, an adult and it was all serious from start to finish. So this is maybe like the goofy this coming out.
ケイチくん、なんだか怖いな。
Scary, but you're acting like he's cute.
怖い怖い日暮らしの時間はもう終わりだぜ。
Oh?
ここからはポップでキュートで萌え萌えな日暮らしが始まるのだ。
Oh no.
なんですって前原様、ぜひ私も
Take me with you.
監督は分かってるじゃねえか。じゃあお医者な監督をしもべに迎えた第一弾として我が魔力を見せよう。
What the fetch are you saying?
なんなのこれ。
高野さんがミニスカなナースさん。しかもピンクとかのギャルゲー的な色じゃない。分かってる。ちゃんと清楚な純白だ。
Oh no.
ナースさんの分際で本編で一度もナース服を着ないとは
Oh
少
yeah.
子千万。さてと次の標的はと。
レナ、これじゃ全然形勢は逆転してないよ。
And we don't get to see anything.
新しいピンチを迎えちゃってるよ。
こんな真っ暗じゃレナにもどうしようもないよ。
さて次は誰にどんな衣装を着せようかね。手堅く制服、体操服、宿水の三段コンボでも決めとくか。
Uh-oh.
前原様、最高っす。
Irie, stop encouraging him.
その後はバニーさんにコンパニオンに、いえいえ、レオタード姿もいいですね。
Oh my gosh.
いやいや、 いっそみんなお色気全開にしちゃうってのはどうでしょう。
These are kids.
もちろん靴下は残すのであります。
Leave the socks on. You depraved creature.
それいい。分かってるじゃねえか。監督、俺やっとあんたと打ち解けられた気がするぜ。
We need to abort immediately.
いえ前原さん。いえ、ケイ、私のことはこれからはイリーと
Edie.
ドクターイリーとお呼びおけ。僕たちのことも忘れちゃ困るよ。
Where'd you come from?
トミーとクラウドも常に K のそばにありますよ。
What?
トミー、クラウド、ついに揃ったぜ。四天王、
The
こ
Elite
こに
Four
見参
arrived.
だ。
Oh shoot, get your Pokemon ready.
ついに
Oh my gosh, the narrator?
K を筆頭に悪の四天王が揃い分暗黒を得てついに地上に降臨を果たした漆黒の魔王前原圭一。その魔力は絶大にして無比。この闇では誰にも立ち向かえない。屈するほかない。ああヒロインたちはこの闇を抜け出せず魔王たちの思うがままに恥ずかしい衣装を次々と強要され。
To be fair though, who's the only person we've actually seen have to wear embarrassing outfits in the game? It's been Keiichi. It almost feels deserved.
永遠に等身大着せ替え人形の扱いをされてしまうのか。最高だぞ、もっとやれっていうか、つくみずはちゃんと旧タイプだろうな。
God, you freaks.
競泳型だったら許さんぞ。
ダク、シオン、あんたのせいでこうなったんだから、あんたなんとかしなさいよ。
大丈夫ですおね。暗闇の中で真の力を得るのはケイちゃんだけじゃないです。そんな都合のいい味方、ここにいましたっけ？
Who are we missing?
チョコザイナ、園崎シオン。ちなみに校長先生を期待してるなら残念だな。
I guess there could be the mayor.
男子本会ここに極まれり。男たる者最善を尽くすべしとお墨付きがちゃんとあるのだ。
Authorization slip.
もちろん新登場の赤坂さんに頼ろうとしても無駄だ。昨日からお嬢さんを親類に預けて夫婦水入らずで温泉旅行だそうだからな。つまり八方塞がりってわけさ。
甘いですねケイちゃん。安易に闇の世界を生み出して妄想全開スチャラか万歳ってやってしまうと。というわけで知恵先生、
A curry lord.
そういうわけです。前原くん。真っ暗でよく見えませんけど、なんだか知恵先生の服装が変わってますわね。
And the Higurashi are here. Uh-oh.
何ですの？あの両手にいっぱいの剣は。まさかそんな、それはいくらなんでも反則。それ以上は内緒なのですよ。
The blah.
みぱー。前原くん、少しお板が過ぎたようです。これ以上は教会も見逃せません。
Oh, the crap. What are they called? Black keys, right? From Fate. Like, cause like the church like assassins who hunt down like existential threats to humanity. They use black keys, which are these swords that they have in there. Like they hold. It doesn't look at all useful because like they basically hold them in their palms and they're like Wolverine claws. But like it looks cool.
ちょっと待てよ。これはないだろ。映るだろ。作品違うじゃねえか。おい、こんなのなしだろ。そのでかいのはまずいって。早すぎる。
Her arc drive.
あんたその動きはギャギャギャギャ
And the madness comes to an end. Is that really just gonna be the whole thing too? You know what? I'm kind of glad we just did that because it made this episode really long, but at the same time, could we have a serious conversation at the end of that? Oh, here we go.
改めましてこんにちは。
Hey, Rena.
この度は日暮の泣く頃に水、暇つぶしをお楽しみくださり、誠にありがとうございました。
Arigato. I think you already know this, but Higurashi When They Cry is a type of visual novel without any choices. Therefore, compared to adventure-type visual novels with branching routes to take, it's much closer to the experience of a book or a movie. Exactly, and that's not a bad thing, despite what some people will say. Because of that, there's even an option out there that this should not be called a game per se. The opinions out there should be called a game per se, and I've made that case as well. I think that that's fairly valid. You can say they're not a game, and that's fine, but you have to also understand that you're, like, it's like, if you feel like because it's not a game, but it's sold on gaming platforms, that somehow fails, like, it's such a goofy reason to overlook some of the greatest stories that have ever been told in history. And I don't say that lightly. Like, I'm not just like being hyperbolic. Like, I've read a lot of classics. I've read a lot of moderns. I've read a lot of basically every genre because I love reading. Still read lots of different stuff. And I still place some of the best, like, stories and characters and world building that I've ever seen in any medium ever. Consistently, visual novels are top of that chart. Is there, like, other stuff there? Of course. I think Les Mis as a book is going to be really tough to top because of just the way it covers, like, these really amazing, important, and incredible topics that we need to talk about. I don't know if I actually, like, a lot of people really like movies. I don't know if I ever place a movie above a visual novel that I've read. I think most visual novels top every movie I've ever seen. They're great, brilliant movies for sure, but movies are so limited in their runtime and scope. They can tell an amazing story in a short amount of time, but like you never quite get to depth. A good movie doesn't have to go that deep in order for you to enjoy it, but a visual novel that has the caliber of writing that a masterpiece movie or a masterpiece novel has captures all the good parts of that. And you get to add soundtracks to that and visual aids that maybe aren't the most like incredibly have the most incredible fidelity, but gives you that access to seeing the world through the eyes of the intention that they were written. It's beautiful. It's a marriage of all the best mediums. It's so good. If you're just watching it like a book or a movie, Higurashi When They Cry isn't really a game, true. That's why, as you know, there are lots of mysteries referenced during the course of the experience. When you challenge those, the work will become a proper game.
プレイヤーの皆さんにはこの謎に満ちた物語を様々な角度から捉え、吟味する権利があります。
The game is the conversations we have outside of the game. Oh, that's a cool take. I like that. The game is actually what happens between the people who've shared the story and debate on what's happening. Most of you already know the ending, so I can't debate with you, but you get to watch me play the game because the game itself is the commentary and the theories that I have. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
例えば劇中に散りばめられた謎について推理をし、それを発表して反響を得たりすることもまた楽しいかと思います。
Can we frame this and just put it on my plaque like a diploma for like my career on YouTube? Is that that's basically the summary of what I do, what I want to do. In any case, the next chapter starts with the Answers arcs. We've tentatively called it Meikashi. But answers are a sad thing. Based on what is revealed, all the possibilities that you were allowed to imagine up until now will suddenly become refined down to a few. Based on that logic, we think that right here, before the Answers arc, is probably where people can enjoy this work we call Higurashi Where They Cry the most. If by chance while you're reading this, you already have the Meikashi chapter at hand, like I do, please enjoy hypothesizing, theorizing, or fantasizing to the fullest before you start. That's where the real charm of this series takes place. Okay. You know what's funny? People were saying in the comment section a few episodes ago that it might be a good idea to do a kind of pseudo-rap party for the questions arc where I just theorize and then go into the answers. And you know what? That's what the game's recommending too. I think I need to do that as well. The trouble's gonna be timing, because next week when I would normally want to do that on Monday, I might not have the time to do so. I'll have to see. I'm going through some changes right now that could become pretty big, and that could mean a delay because there's just a lot in the air that could become very real very soon. I gotta work on it some more, but tentatively, let's have a pseudo kind of rap party, and I'm gonna go Theorycraft. In fact, I might even just whip out like MS Paint and like write down like my thoughts in bubbles and like try and kind of make it a graphic as well. If I really took some time, which I just don't have, unfortunately, if I had the time, I would like pre-make a chart that I could just go over and kind of share my thoughts and kind of like visually do it. But maybe if I do it live, we can still get a similar effect, even though it'll look real sketch. But maybe that's what I need to do. Is I just need to sit down and have a broadcast theory. The thing is though, the other thing is that maybe I don't do that live like I've done before. What if I make that as a video? Because if I do it as a video, it would make it so that people aren't as inclined to potentially spoil something. You know, I'm gonna actually maybe I'll put a poll out, or tell me in the comments of this video if you're watching this still. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. But if you're watching this still, please let me know. Would you prefer a live stream where I live kind of broadcast my thoughts, can hear some feedback from the community, but potentially risk have something being spoiled to me? Or do I record it and just post it, where it will be a lot more just ranting, but it kind of gives me that barrier of like not having things spoiled on accident or by somebody getting too excited and oversharing? That's like, because that's a very real risk doing something like this halfway through a series. All right, I'd love to know your thoughts there. I'll probably do some kind of channel poll as well, just to kind of see, or maybe not a channel poll. Maybe I'll restrict it to the Higurashi Discord chat, because that's where I know a lot of people who are like wanting to like be very like active with this playthrough. I tend to go. So if you haven't, check that place out just to see. I gotta think about this, and there's a lot going on, so I can't be sure what I'm gonna do yet. But I do want to get your opinions on this, so I want to do something. So let me know what you think would be best in the comments below, and then on the Discord. Even if you don't see a poll there, like you can also post there, because I'll see that too. Sorry for saying something so impudent. There's nothing better we'd like than for you to enjoy Higurashi when they cry.
それでは素敵な夜長を。Hinamizawa村で皆さんをお待ちしていますね。
Alright.
レナと遊んでくれるなら一緒に宝探しに行きたいな。
That sounds interesting.
はう。
Alright. There we go. That's the end. So, we did it. Freaking such a long episode. Holy crap. But if you stuck it out this long, thank you so much. So, that's the big bundles we're going with. I've already kind of shared some of my thoughts. Let's do an actual like theory roundup where I kind of go over all my thoughts and take it into different directions. And basically, I'll probably boil it down to like the potential answers I see and where I end up like lining up as like what my ultimately, like as things stand now with all the information I've got. And keep in mind, it's not going to be super in-depth. I imagine if you had a lot more time between these releases and you were really like focusing on it, you could probably go back and play through things and like look for stuff. Like that would be the way to really try and do like a proper branch, and might be kind of like a good way to do it if I took a long time where I went back and personally replayed and kind of took notes, because there's probably stuff I missed in especially the first two parts that would be a lot more meaningful now that I have the information I have. And if I did that, I could probably have a lot more of a like exact theory to build off of. But the thing is, I don't know if I would be willing to take that much time. And luckily, I don't have a perfect memory, but I've got a decent memory for stories. And so there's a good chance that as while I'm theory crafting, I will remember little odd bits and pieces here and there. And maybe if I need to, I could replay and rewatch certain episodes of my own videos and see what I thought or see at the time. Although that's hard. I don't particularly like, you know how like a lot of times you don't like hearing your own voice when it's recorded. I've already kind of gotten used to that, but watching my own content, especially like I already do that a lot when editing, and so I usually don't find it appealing to go back and rewatch my own stuff after I posted it, because I've already seen it like several times effectively. But maybe that's a good way for me to move forward with this. All right. So give me some thoughts on what you think of the options, either to do a live kind of like slapstick theory craft, or if I should do a more methodical but personal video format theory craft, where I kind of just go over everything and look at the connections and just kind of essentially build up to my conclusions of what I think the most likely scenario is. So yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on that, but thank you so much. Man, you've been here a while. Let's get going. Thank you for your support. It means the world to me. especially if you're also a channel member or a Patreon member. Like, oh my gosh, like above and beyond doesn't even begin to describe it. I hopefully made this all worth your time. So thank you. I hope you have a great day. I'm excited to talk about some of the theories I have and what I think might be going on, and then ultimately start getting some answers. So until the next video you're watching me, I hope to see me in next. I'll see you there.